How are things going? I didn't realize the minutes had switched over. I completely lost track of time. I wanted to make sure you get a chance to see Orion today because he is doing so much better. So much better, y'all. You'd hardly believe it. Although he's still definitely got, I got a thumbs up going. He is still definitely got those drugged eyes going on from all of that tranquilizer he is on. Lots and lots of trazodone is what I am seeing. Hey, y'all. Yes, he is doing much better. Can you guys see him? You guys should be able to see him. Very strange. Adam, how are you? You guys, I am having trouble with the stupid chat again in Restream. I wonder if I try to turn on the overlay, if it'll work any better. I don't think so. I'm going to have to watch chat in YouTube. Oh, I know what I can do. I can pop chat out and watch it that way. You can't see him. Okay, let me add him in. Oh, there he is. There he is, y'all. Now I need to find the chat window, which is not that. I know where it is. It's over here. Hi, Janelle. Hi, Cricket. Hi, Adam. Hi, Susan. How are all you guys doing? He is being a very good boy. You can't see, but he did a real number on the end of his bone. So things are, he is coming along. He's still on a ton of trazodone. Because we've got to keep him on bed rest. But he is doing all the things he needs to be doing. Things are coming out, things are going in. It could be a lot worse. Paolo, how are you, dear? It is very good to see you. I don't know, guys. This every 8 hours medication thing is wearing me thin. I am seriously tired. It is it's wearing me out. You fell asleep in yesterday's live and woke up 4 hours later, Susan? Wow. I hope you had a good nap. I hope it was an excellent nap. I took a 20-minute nap and woke up and I still feel zonked. I do not like naps for this reason at all. Nap Hard, the sequel. Indeed. So, how is who was first person in? I completely missed it. Adam. Adam wins. Adam wins. You ready to see Adam? There it is. It's okay that you fall asleep. Janelle, I have a really hard time waking up from naps. It's a really unpleasant thing. Brian, how are you? Your proton is set up. That's wonderful, Adam. Isn't it lovely? No bandages on Orion this time. Cricket does the best work. I love how the trophy is sitting on the back wing. A little bit. The plane definitely has a steampunk feel about it. Industrial, 30s, Art Nouveau. Has it been a long day, Brian? How are things for you? I hope it's been a long, good day. I hope it's been a long, good day. Mine has been a lazy day. It has been a lazy week, actually, staying home. And so drop me an email, Adam, or drop it to Cricket, either one of us, and we will get it back to you as quickly as we can. Indeed. I've seen attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I thought it was interesting Orion came up in the reading too. Now I'm not going to be able to find it. My book is underneath the stroller, pardon me. Oh, Brian, I am so sorry. How come so early, man? That is just terrible. Yep, Cricket Cinema at proton.me. It's a really beautiful line. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. We are watching. Adam, have you watched this? Rebel Moon. Your bladder hates you? Oh, I have been known to have that problem. Brian, I have been known to have that problem. So we watched over the last week, my husband and I watched Rebel Moon Part 1 and 2. And it is Cricket. We should read your condensed report. Jiminy Christmas, Cricket. You're putting up book reports? Man, let's read this report together. I'll read it to y'all. This'll be good. But back to what I was going to say about about the movie. The movie is space opera, like serious space opera. And long. We watched the director's cut, and they're like 3 hours long, each of them. 3.7 out of 7.10. Anyhow, it's really interesting watching this space opera in the midst of reading a book about science fiction. And thinking about alien worlds and alienation and superpowers and all of the things we've been talking about. Cricket, is it okay if I read it out loud? So, if you guys are into space opera, there is a lot of suspension of belief that has to go on because the story is not internally consistent. And radiation. There is that as well. It's if you like space opera, Adam, it's intense. It's pretty intense, but if you like space opera, it's pretty good. So, Cricket, I don't want to read this unless it's the AI. You're not going to care if I read it, are you? You're not going to care much at all, so let me show it. Nope. That's not it. It was this. Bladders are built for a half a century of use and then planned obsolescence. There you go, Janelle. So, chapter 3 on radiation. In chapter 3 of Mutants and Mystics, Jeffrey delves into the intersection of comic book narratives, mystical experiences, and paranormal phenomenon. Hey, Red. He examines how superhero stories often mirror spiritual or transformative experiences, portraying characters with extraordinary abilities that reflect broader cultural anxieties and aspirations. He argues that comic books are modern myths, blending science fiction with mysticism to explore profound questions about human potential and the unknown. He explores the personal experiences of comic book creators and how their encounters with the paranormal or mystical influence their work. For instance, he references creators like Alan Moore, whose comic Promethea integrates occult and mystical themes. These creators often drew on their own interests in spirituality, mythology, and esotericism to create layered narratives that resonate with readers on both a personal and symbolic level. Hey, Big Chief. Getting up or getting depends. There you go. The chapter for instance, he references characters like Alan Moore, whose comic Promethea integrates occult and mystical themes. These creators often drew on their own interests in spirituality, mythology, and esotericism to create layered narratives that resonate with readers on both a personal and symbolic level. It's good to see you, Big Chief. I hope you're doing well. The chapter further examines the role of superhero comics as a medium for exploring the limits of human potential. Characters like Spider-Man and Superman and the X-Men embody themes of moral righteousness, societal rejection, and self-discovery, acting as metaphors for real-world issues such as discrimination, transformation, and enlightenment. Through these narratives, he argues, comics offer a way to explore spiritual and philosophical questions in an accessible format. So, in conclusion, the chapter illustrates how superhero comics serve as a bridge between science fiction, mysticism, and cultural exploration. By examining the connections between characters like the X-Men and movements like Esalen, Kripal reveals the deeper significance of comic books as tools for understanding human potential, the paranormal, and society's relationship with the unknown. So I guess the first question is, what do you guys think about the idea of superheroes as modern mythological features? Figures, rather. Figures, features. What do you guys think of that idea? And yes, please remember to hit the like button. This was a really interesting chapter talking about how alienation became radiation. That's going to become mutation. They are mythological, but they reflect some problems with Gnosticism. Tell me more, Adam. You mean they have the same problems as Gnosticism? Since they're drawn from such Gnostic thoughts, this idea that all knowledge is attainable or that there exists all knowledge on some level, that's an attainable goal to have all the knowledge. I don't know that that's an attainable goal. But I'd be curious what you mean by that. I think it's really interesting the way the superhero, if our gods struggle, are they gods? Yes. This is a hard question, isn't it? If I'm losing faith, do I have faith, right? Am I still a believer if I'm not losing faith? Losing faith. If I am losing faith, rather. And they are being sold commercially. Well, I would think, Cricket, that back in the mythological days, there was plenty of selling of the myths that went on. I mean, I think everybody has this theological problem, right? But tell me about how the Cathars had it specifically. And I know it's hard to fit into the character limit. Hey, Indigo, how are you? I am dragging a little bit today. It has been a long and tiring week. We are about to get a visitor, though. Here he comes. Here he comes, y'all. Gotta move my keyboard out of the way. You've got him in both cameras. He's busy checking the dog out. Are we good? What are we doing here? Are we going to get situated right smack dab in front of my face? The Cathars were medieval dualists who believed that an evil lesser god controlled the world. The question becomes, well, exactly. I mean, isn't that the question of good and evil entirely? If God is all powerful, why do we have Satan? If God is all powerful, why do we have evil? Why do we have wrong in the world? Why do we have any of those things? If God is all powerful, he must not be all powerful, but he has to be all powerful. It is a difficult question. I am probably not coming at it from the angle you're thinking about it at, Adam, but that's an evil lesser god controlled the world. Yeah, and if that's true, where's the big god and why is he not? I mean, that is the question, but Gnosticism doesn't present a more coherent alternative. Right. Right. It is useful to examine all of it because That's why I like comparative religions. They're not all covering the same stuff, even though they're all covering the same stuff. Exactly, Indigo. You're not wrong. I agree. It's balance in all things. Balance is the trick. Moderation, the middle way. Not in the way most people think of it, but in the embrace of the rational and the irrational, the reasonable and the unreasonable, all at once. That is, I mean, that was what, the first and second chapter or the intro? Embracing the duality rather than flipping back and forth on the duality. So, what do you guys think? Are superheroes closer to gods or mystics or evolved humans? There was a sect in Zoroastrianism that saw time itself as the archdeity. I can, I mean, it is the all powerful. It is the all powerful. It has, and there's no duality there, right? Um, Hi, No Face. How are you, sweetie? Look at Lilith. She had an independent personality and so was cast out of Eden, and Eve was created. But she too wanted knowledge. Yes. Hey, Antics. It is good to see you. Orion is doing well. He is sleeping away in the wonderful stroller that Brain Fog and Papa Cat got him. And I remembered to say them both this time. Sorry about the beep. Superheroes feel like rogue supercomputers. Evolved humans, as they still make mistakes and have to learn about responsible use of their powers. I don't know, I can conceive of a god that still makes mistakes and has to learn about responsible use of their power. Blue blouses. What are blue blouses? As I'm wondering if it's warmed up outside lately. Usually I am freezing, and today I am extra warm. It is nice of you to come by. I think that they are a mix of things. I think that there are superheroes that are closer to gods. But it depends on how you define God, right? If you define God as all powerful and all knowing, right, Adam? I meant to do more research into what's going on with the mystery drones. It's been very interesting. I thought about it as I was reading the chapter. In ancient cultures, polytheism exists because each god or goddess explains with theology in ancient times what we attribute to science in modern times. Where did the storm come from? Yes, angry Poseidon. It answers a question. It answers a question that we didn't have an answer to. Poseidon is the answer to a question. Where did the storm come from? And we have those answers now, but we don't have answers to questions like where do the mystery drones come from? And we have very pat answers that are mythological science fiction answers that are available in the cultural milieu for people to pick up on. So, yeah, it's like that stroll across the turbine gantry in a nuclear facility. There's a certain resonance that can be attained that reasons existence, therefore God. Well, who made anybody know face? Who made anything? Something. Wolfhart Pannenberg was a Christian theologian who had an interesting view of time and redemption. Wolfhart Pannenberg, German theologian, systematic. The answer to the eternal question is what is the answer? Yes. So, theological Wolfhart. Yes, it's a great name. Pannenberg's epistemology, explained clearly in his shorter essays, is crucial to his theological project. It is heavily influenced by Schlink, who proposed a distinction between analogical truth and doxological truth. In this way of thinking, theology tries to extract doxological truth. Yeah, that makes sense to me. As such, it is a response to God's self revelation. Hmm. It's actually Wolfhart. Wolfhart. History is an unfolding process in which spirit and freedom are revealed, and revelation occurs vertically from above. The resurrection of Christ is a proleptic version of what history is unfolding. There's a lot there. History is revelation. He thinks history is over and retro projects back onto reality. Now it is forever Wolfart. I always wonder as to whom the Grail serves. Perhaps it's mankind. Yes. My, he's not a particularly nice man. Died in 2014. Do you guys think that This idea of superheroes as mythic figures challenges traditional definitions of mythology? I don't think it does. He was a pretty conservative guy. I get that. I'm reading that. Pretty conservative indeed. So it does, I mean, this idea of superheroes as mythic figures does expand mythology beyond ancient origins. But I think that's a common enough thought process like the modern mythos. We know we have a mythological canon, and I think that it's been referenced by people enough. Um, Brain fog. Thought went out of my head. Yes, which is what mythology is designed to do, Adam. It captures our modern anxieties, which is what theology is is modeled, is created, is supposed to do. I mean, all this talk about sublimation and this idea that, what was it? This idea that our natures get sublimated and then fed back into us. Some of that would depend on how devoted people are to those particular characters. That's a good point, Cricket. Um, but you get, I mean, while you don't get many devotees of ancient myths, I don't know many people who are devotees of Hercules or Athena. You've never read any comics except Dennis the Menace, Cricket? Oh, Cricket, y'all, Cricket needs some comics to start with. There can be significant devotion to these characters, and I think in some ways, I mean, it's cultural. There's a level of cultural devotion that's going on. We all go to watch the movies, we watch them together, we watch them separately, we watch them repeatedly. People stand in line. The essence of the book is that all these writers and artists thought they plugged into something real. Yeah, but it's not just the writers and artists, right? It's the reality of the Mothman stuff, right? And the experience of the guy who wrote about it. So there is this doxologically real. It's real in that it was a real experience, but it's not real in that it can't be explained scientifically. So that leads me to wonder what phenomenon if we don't have if there isn't a scientific explanation for it, then it's considered not real, right? If we didn't have a theological explanation for it, was it considered not real when we just had theology? That is my question. And Nebulous, I think that's an excellent question. Why did Thanos go for the flick despite being in possession of all the Infinity Stones? Exactly that. Exactly that. I mean, that's a storyline in so much of science fiction. That one little thing that is the thing that somebody did or didn't do, um, that made all the difference. In the film that I was talking about, we were watching, and the psychoepistemologically real, but not ontologically real, at least not conclusively real. Yes, it depends on what definition of real. Experientially, can we prove it? Because he needed them all to do the click. What do you mean, Indigo? Is that your answer to Thanos? Does anybody have a suggestion for a comic for Cricket to read? He needs a comic to start. Cricket, have you been reading the book or just reading the... Exactly, Adam. In the three body problem, the show The Three Body Problem, it's probably a book as well, there is a scene where one of the characters is communicating with an alien whom he believes is a god. And this character is telling the god stories. And God asks about the story as if it's real. And then God finds out that humans can say things that aren't true. And the alien who the character believes is a god. The alien is terrified and breaks off communication. It's a very interesting interchange about what's real and what's not real. Superheroes evolved from people feeling helpless about World War I and II. They wanted someone to change their situation because they felt like they didn't have the power themselves. Yes, Indigo, I mean, but they felt helpless in part because the ways that they had, the religious ways of making sense in the world didn't make sense anymore, and science didn't give a solution for the things they were worried about. In fact, science was the worry. Oh, I'm sorry, Cricket. That's too bad. Oh, it's very Chinese. The Confucian mandate of heaven is all about reconciling names with the things they represent. They say that the source of some of the freakier writings historically are due to propensity towards the devil's dandruff or mushrooms, even. Yes, I have heard that. Devil's lettuce, Cricket. Devil's dandruff? Yeah, I read the devil's lettuce. Devil's dandruff. Tell me more, Nebulous. Do you mean white powdery substances? I have no doubt that some of the mystical experiences, freakier historical writings are drug assisted. No doubt. But one of the interesting things in the book here it's really hard for me to remember. Oh, that the Mothman, the guy who was researching Mothman, really was a, nope, that's chapter 4. Really was a disbeliever. White powdery substances. They had white powdery substances prehistorically, Nebulous? It's found in ancient Egyptian culture and might explain their gods, even blue lotus flowers. Peter Sodstadt does a lot of work in psychedelics and philosophy. I'm glad you're back. Yes, we did, Antics. Yes, we did. Peter, I think I've heard of him. Adam. Philosopher of mind and metaphysics. Wow. That's an interesting guy. We need to look into him. Okay, I was right. I didn't know it was found that far back. That's fascinating. Sorry, guys, I just got a Facebook message. Dr. Peter Schodstedt Hughes. He is all over the place. Huh. Philosopher of mind and metaphysics. Forensic archaeology is opening many doors of perception. Forensic archaeology is really brilliant. Ooh. Dr. Peter Sodstedt, I'm not pronouncing it right, Hughes, is a philosopher of mind and metaphysics who specializes in the thought of Whitehead, Spinoza, Nietzsche, and Bergson, and in fields pertaining to panpsychism, pantheism, mental causation, and altered states of consciousness. He is a lecturer at the University of Exeter, where he is a lead on the new Masters in Science in Psychedelics, Mind, Medicine, and Culture. He is co-director of Europe's largest psychedelics conference, Breaking Convention, and is on the board of a breathwork charity, Dream Shadow. He is also, most importantly, inspiration to the recreation of Inhuman philosopher Marvel superhero Karnak. Hey, Never in Aaron. How are you? I thought it was really interesting how superhero powers become the paranormal experience. That was really interesting. Peace. Yes, Nebulous. If this was the 18th century when I showed you my Tyrannosaurus Rex teeth collection, you would conclude the existence of dragons for sure. Right, because that is the first thing that would come to mind. Who could invent dinosaurs? But what's interesting is the similarities dinosaurs have to dragons. I mean, they're big, some of them fly. I mean, one wonders if there isn't some prehistoric memory of huge flying creatures heading to a comedy show, going to drink soda, eat fries, and laugh yourself silly. That sounds like a ton of fun. If you're headed to a comedy show, Aaron, what are you doing with us? You just hanging out until it's getting ready to time to go? Even though radiation is more an analogy, I still find it interesting that these super intelligent aliens never discovered cold fusion. I know that, antics. I know. Yeah, that's interesting, Adam. I find all kinds of things interesting about the super intelligent aliens. Often the super intelligent aliens seem to be really super stupid in ways that give the humans an unreasonable advantage. Oh, nice, Aaron. That sounds like a lot of fun. I haven't been to a comedy show in a while. Guys, I think we are coming up in time on the first Minnesota goodbye. Big Chief, are you still here? Yeah, it's interesting how the powers become the esoteric events. So people have experiences of telepathy or of invisibility, and that becomes the paranormal experience. There you go, Adam. Cracking me up, as always. Cracking me up as always. Another really interesting point is talking about the love lives and how the love lives of the authors plutonium is a man-made material that doesn't occur naturally, nor is it found on planet Earth. Right, but we make it from things that are found, right? Like we're combining things to get new things that nature didn't come up with. But that doesn't mean we're not getting. I mean, there's a lot that doesn't occur naturally on planet Earth, including peanut butter cups. Although I probably am misreading your intention harshly, Nebulous. The personal experience of the authors and the artists, I found a really interesting commentary. He commented on how Stanley and Jack Kirby, plastic, exactly. Stanley and Jack Kirby both were sickly and not particularly popular with girls. And so they needed superpowers and magical powers. Ah, I hear what you're saying, Nebulous. Yeah, I it's part of humanity is anti-nature, at least currently. I don't think that's always been the case, but certainly currently part of. But isn't that the same, Nebulous, as what we were talking about with evil and good? Why do we have to have the evil with the good? How come God can't can't control the evil. So anyhow, about these natures. Stanley and Jack Kirby were nerds who had trouble getting girls. And so they created superheroes who had superpowers, who could see through walls, who could fly, who could do telepathy, who could do all these things that normal men couldn't do. And that's how it represented for them. Whereas the man who wrote Batman was a playboy type who got all the girls and had a very successful life. And so he created a superhero who was fully human. And so there's this interesting mix of the less human a superhero is, the less sexual activity they seem to have. Whereas the more human a superhero is, the more sexual activity they seem to have. It's just a very interesting, very interesting. You guys saying hi to each other never disrupts the conversation. Don't ever think that that is the case, because it never, ever is. I always love to hear from you. And I always like to watch Celibate Man. Yes, exactly. I always like to watch you saying hi to each other, y'all. So, pastime, I think it has disrupted before. Here, if it did, I am sorry, Antics. I don't mean it to be disruptive. I don't want it to be disruptive. I like having you do it. Celibate Man. Yeah, except Batman wasn't celibate. Is very interesting. It had never occurred to me before, but it's very interesting. I am sorry, Antics. You are free to do as you please. I think it's important. You're not disrupting. This is what I do. I talk to the chat. I have a conversation with you guys as you're going on. It's not a problem. Really. You're not disrupting. I mean, unless you want me to not lose my train of thought, but that could happen anyhow. I could totally lose my train of thought without you interrupting. So that that first night, okay. You think I have a good enough memory to remember that specifically, and I should, but I do not, Antics. I apologize. I stopped the book because everyone was saying hi. Well, maybe I just wanted to say hi too, Antics. Maybe I just wanted to say hi too. Or maybe I messed up and I was rude, in which case I really apologize. I didn't want it to come across that way. That's not how I intended. So, how are you guys seeing that any of this applies to cults and Scientology? Disruption is a conversational mutant that can become a superhero. Exactly what Antics said. Or Antics, exactly what Adam said. Both with A names. Make me mix up my names. Yes, follow Gnome Roamer Absolutely follow Gnome Roamer. Who is Gnome Roamer going to next, Antics? Hubbard was obsessed with radiation. That's right, he was, wasn't he? Pulp Fiction, like Dianetics. Indeed, Nebulous. Cubs and then Manning. Okay. Okay. Then MD Media, then Rika, then Brain Fog. Okay. Hubbard writing stories while taking who knows what. He was on a lot of drugs. Man was on a shit ton of drugs. Although, I don't know, in the 50s and 60s, was he on that many drugs? I think a lot of these people who wrote these stories didn't necessarily. I mean, I don't get that the comic book stories were born out of a lot of drugs. You have them planned out through Chinese New Year. That's excellent. He's just going to be sleeping for the next 6 weeks, you guys. That I saw that today, Antics. I saw that in Brain Fog's chat today. That's excellent that Brain Fog gets him for Chinese New Year. Hubbard was a charlatan who got seduced by his creations and ended up as a demented believer. They became real for him. Epistemology busting into the world. Yeah, but not in the same way that they talked about the other writers' stories becoming real. The guy that they wrote about again in this chapter, whose story became real, that he talked about in chapter 1, Adam, and the other people he talked about who wrote a whole story about, I think it was a woman named Kathy. In his story, that he then found a person named Kathy who fulfilled all these characters. That's not the way that Hubbard's stories became real. They seemed to become real in a way that consumed him, in a way that wasn't actually real, but that was weird, wrongly real, if that makes any sense. Like, in a way that wasn't a natural, oh, okay, he was taking all kinds of drugs. His first major work, Excalibur, was the result of being given laughing gas at the dentist. Wow. Well, he was on drugs then. He was on drugs the whole time. But I'm not getting the sense that all these comic book mystical authors were all on drugs. I think a lot of them were, but I get the sense that a lot of them weren't. I mean, I didn't get the sense that the guy who was writing amazing, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just don't remember now. I know I'm going to have to read this book twice. It's there's a lot in there, and I have to run off and do research on a bunch of other stuff whenever I read. So do you guys think comic books, belief, imagination, itself was their drug? Yes, Adam. That's yeah. I think there's some of both being going on. Do you guys think comic books, um, superheroes is uniquely suited to exploring mystical and spiritual ideas? It's them, Pink and White's messing with the membrane that made him insane. Yeah. Yeah, it's the Pink and White's messing with the membrane. Yes. So I don't think the comic book medium is uniquely suited to exploring mystical and spiritual ideas, but I think we get a lot of mysticism and spiritualism in comic books and science fiction and fantasy. See you later, Aaron. Enjoy the show. Enjoy the show. They're like pop culture ecumenical councils. They bring everything together and sort through it and publish it back out, Adam. Interesting, as I've never thought of an ecumenical council as a comic. I mean, as a, you're breaking my brain, Adam. You're breaking my brain. One of the things like they wrestle with the nuances of spirituality. Interesting, like the Philoque controversy. Philoque controversy. Now I need to remember what that is because I know the name. The Great Schism. Yes. The theological debate between Western and Eastern Christian churches over the origin of the Holy Spirit. Yep. Western churches believe the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son, while Eastern churches believe it proceeds from the Father alone. Western churches emphasize the one divine nature, while Eastern churches focus on the monarchy of the Father. So this issue contributes to the tensions that led to the schism between the Eastern Church and the Western Church. The Filioque. I did know what that was. I was right. So the perhaps society should drug test certain positions of power on a daily basis, like airline pilots or train drivers, popes and presidents alike. You'd think, since drug testing is so important for other people for safety reasons. I agree, Nebulous, but I think we should have psychological exams to be president, even though it's not necessarily constitutional. I think that if we can keep people out of certain office, comics get into excruciating detail just like councils. Yeah, I suppose they do, Adam. And so do, I mean, not just the comics, the mystical threads. I mean, it's not like it's interesting. It's not like Hubbard didn't go into excruciating detail, but he didn't do it as a council. He did it navel gazing. He didn't bring it out and try to integrate it with everything. He just tried to develop what he was doing. So there's no outward gaze. There's only an inward gaze. Tibetan Buddhism has a crazy amount of detail. Interesting. They've had a long time to develop it. Ah. Aren't you funny, Adam? That's hilarious. Pure navel gazing. Pure navel gazing. Look at that puppy nose. Hey, you want to come show people? Say hi? They want to see your face? Your drugged out face? Hmm? They want to see your drugged out face, baby? Should we get a little bit closer? There he is. There's his pretty little face. Oops. There it is. Pretty little face. You're going to go hide it again. Yes, pure navel gazing. Okay, guys, it is second Minnesota goodbye, and I think we are only going to third Minnesota goodbye today because I am still dragging. If you haven't noticed, my energy is way, way down, and I am having a trouble keeping it elevated. So I know what we were watching last night. My husband and I were watching the Dune series on Netflix. Oh, HBO Max. Thanks, Adam. Um, the Dune prequel on HBO Max. And it was very interesting because what they are developing, what they're working with, is the beginnings of the Bene Gesserit sisterhood. The very beginnings of it, before it had all the excruciating detail that they created. But one of the things that they specifically talk about is this idea that became part of Bene Gesserit lore, mythos. I'm not thinking of the proper word. I'm sure Adam will give it to me. That a crisis creates a need that creates growth. And that is the font from which the voice, the voice of the Bene Gesserit witch came from, is a crisis that needed overcome. The epilogue oh no, Aaron. Well, so we get you for a little while more. On the plus side, the epilogue to the 1984 TV version of Dune. I didn't know there was such a thing. Hubby, this is something we should watch. In the 1984 Dune film, the epilogue depicts Paul Atreides, now fully embracing his role as the Kwisatz Haderach, standing amidst the desolate Arrakis landscape as a torrential rainstorm begins to fall, signifying his complete control over the planet and the fulfillment of the Fremen prophecy. This dramatic moment is accompanied by his sister Leah's voiceover declaring, "And how can this be? For he is the Kwisatz Haderach," effectively painting Paul as a messianic figure who has brought life and changed the barren world, leaving the audience with a sense of awe and a hint of foreboding about his immense power. It's considered a significant departure from Frank Herbert's novel. Yeah, because the book portrays Paul's growing power with much more ambiguity and a greater sense of personal tragedy. The TV epilogue had a different narrator. Those that control the spice. Indeed, it's all a fight for the spice. It's actually, I was quite impressed with it. If y'all are like Dune at all and are interested in the story, then it's certainly worth your time. Now it makes sense, Adam. I was like, a different a different narrator. It had a different the prologue was a different narrator than the epilogue, is what you're trying to say, Adam, right? So it was very interesting. We've only watched 2 or 3 episodes. You have brain glitches, Adam? It's nice to know that even you have them. We all have brain glitch. They happen. It's interesting to watch them, the Bene Gesserit, as theology as essentially unformed and weak and needing to create power. It's a very interesting one. Is also really interesting that this concept as transformation isn't just the characters, but it's also different narrative from the theater version. It's much more detailed. I didn't really realize there was a TV version from then. Adam, is it available to watch? Got the film, but not the movie or not the TV show. Interesting. It's on YouTube. Okay. Okay. So I'm out of thoughts, you guys. Like I said, my brain is not all here today. Do you guys have more thoughts? Or do we need to call it a day? The spice is an allegory for oil. Yes, the spice must flow. The spice must flow. We cannot. I mean, it's an ecological allegory, right? It's ecological science fiction. Ecological and philosophical comparative religion science fiction. But more religion and ecology than lots and lots of science fiction. So the schedule this week, you guys, eco politics for sure. Yeah. The schedule this week, because we've got Christmas coming up pretty soon. The schedule for me this week is as normal. Wednesday, we will have Wheel of Wednesday. I might make that starting at 7 o'clock because I have to work until 5 on Wednesdays. And so it just makes things a lot easier if I show up at 5 or at 7 instead of 6, if that works for all y'all. So that'll be Wednesday. And then Saturday is bacon and baking hour. And Sunday we will do chapter 4. And chapter 4 is, I believe, this chapter was radiation. So chapter 4 is mutation and the X-Men. Mutation and the X-Men. And then we have realization, authorization, and a third kind. And then we have an afterword. The season to be jolly. Oh, Adam, I would love that. Do you have my email, sweetie? So I am going to take this time, unless you guys have last words. I know this has been a quiet live. I'm sorry for that. If you have any last thoughts, otherwise I am going to say goodbye, and I am going to at least attempt. You have it now. Indeed you do. I am going to attempt figure out what I can do about medicine and this dog. I have to pill him again at midnight, which means then I have to be up again at 8. It's just exhausting. But he is getting better. It's worth it. Okay, guys, I have babbled enough. We will see you guys next time. Stay safe, stay sane. Hugs.